Welcome, everyone.
Roughly 250,000.
Welcome to GIA Alumni, Washington, D.C. chapter. So tonight, we have our wonderful Denise Nelson. I have known Denise and Dennis for many years. Denise and I have shared a room at various jewelry conferences, and we're still friends. And I just adore Denise and Dennis so much. But anyway, tonight she's going to be talking about the diamond mines in Namibia that they visited. So I'm really looking forward to seeing their travel pictures. So let's give a warm welcome to Denise Nelson. Take it away, Denise.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all the nice words you've said. And I am just thrilled to be here. Anyway, welcome to Africa today. We have had a nice warm summer. We've had a nice cooler fall, and now we're going to skip this continent for a moment and head to Africa. My trip to Africa was a few years ago. It was like in 2007, I believe. But I tried to update a few things about this talk, and so you will hear what has happened since then. And some things don't change as much in other countries as they do here. Let's see if this goes on. Okay. Wanted to show you where we are. This is the southern tip of Africa. Cape Town is all the way on the southern tip, and you can see that that is the country of South Africa. And can you see my arrow?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm going to introduce us to Kimberley, where kimberlite is named after that area. And that is the main diamond area in the South African area. Johannesburg is just north of there, and I spent a few days there. We were extremely lucky. And the story goes, as usual, we went to Tucson, and we had some friends in Tucson, and as Helen and several people who've gone there know, you stand around, you visit with your friends, you look at all the new gemstones, you look at all the new jewelry, you socialize a bit. And I happened to stand there with a couple of friends, and one of them said, I want you to meet someone. And this someone was a gem person, a geologist. He had been a professor at one of the schools in the United States. And I was introduced to this gentleman and his wife, and we just chatted for about 10 minutes. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, he says, would you like to go to the diamond mines in Namibia with us? And I did not give it any thought. I said yes. And I'm sure some of you will understand that, because opportunities like that are just an amazing, amazing thing. I had never even thought of going to Africa. And so this just kind of fell into our laps. There were only 8 people were invited to go. And so it was a very special experience. The trip was planned by Tony Kampf. He's the director of the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles. And he had a few connections. And so we were chosen along with the Heitzings, who are the publishers of Rocks and Mineral publication, and a couple of other people. So anyway, this is how it all started. We weren't quite sure how tedious it would be to travel through the famous deserts of South Africa and this area. And so we had nothing to base on what to expect. However, we knew that the main trip would be in this area, Lüderitz, Namibia, which is just the Orange River is the border between the country of South Africa and Namibia. And we knew that the main part of the diamond area we were going to go was there. But Dennis and I wanted to, of course, go and see the Kimberley area. We were able to make arrangements to go to one of the most famous places, and that is the Cullinan Premier Mine. We had no interest in doing the tourist thing of just seeing the outside of everything. We wanted to go down into the mines, and it was very fortunate that we were able to arrange that. And all of you probably know the story of the Cullinan Diamond being found in that town. And the town now, as you can see, has a few gates going on. You have to go through security, and we did go down into the mines. Cullinan is a company town, and even the windows are in diamond shapes, as you can see on the right in that little museum. And of course, it was made famous from Cecil Rhodes, who was one of the early starters of diamond mining in that area. He was actually a young man who didn't do well health-wise in England, so his father sent him to the colonies, and he became a master brain in trying to put everything together to make diamond mining into a business rather than a separate mining from a separate mining area, which had many miners robbing each other and very corrupt and very difficult to get diamonds into a organized marketplace. Cecil Rhodes was brilliant. He was able to combine several different smaller companies, made sure that the miners were not competing with each other, but mainly competing with the people who were trying to come in and buy their diamonds. Price fixing probably had also something to do with that, but anyway, he's quite well known in that area. And the town, of course, is a mining town. It wouldn't exist otherwise if Cullinan didn't have this big pit mine. And I was just intrigued by how everything is concentrating on diamonds. Here's the Premier Diamond Lodge, a little building, but on the left you will see old explosives. Here's a disposal box for old explosives. I'm not sure if I approve of having old explosives stored in the middle of the town. Anyway, this is the famous diamond that made Cullinan a real historical place. It is the largest diamond, one of the largest diamonds ever found, 3,106 carats. Supposedly it was found by Mr. Frederick Wells, superintendent of the Premier Mine. But as the story goes, it isn't often that the superintendent finds a diamond himself. And it is certain that one of the miners found the diamond. The story goes that it was, of course, immediately handed over to him. But what is interesting about this stone is, of course, its connection with the crown jewels, but also that it has a completely flat underside. It is a huge rock, but it looks like it has been cleaved. The underside is completely flat, and the story, the legend goes, that the other half is still somewhere to be found in the same area. So that is one of the legends, but it is an extremely clean stone and quite historically important. This is the Cullinan mine. It's an open pit mine, and we were able to walk around the outside a bit, but it had rained the day before. And what made this interesting, it's called, kimberlite is often called blue. Well, it's not really blue, it's mostly a gray color. And kimberlite also dissolves in water very easily. So you have this muddy, greenish, grayish, brownish mud area. And even in the mining, in the deep down, you will be able to see that it also becomes almost like glue, and it sticks to your boots, and it can get on you. It's easily washed off, but that is the characteristic of that type of soil and rock. The mine is huge. It's an open pit mine. It can actually be seen from outer space. It is 1,000 meters long, 500 meters wide, and 450 meters deep. It actually is, I believe, a little bit deeper than that. What is interesting is that they have stopped mining on the surface in this hole, but they have drilled down on the side, along the side, to go under this pit. So being under this pit where the veins of the diamonds are running through is what they are concentrating on. And we were at, I think it was 760 meters down. So about 300 or so meters deeper than what the pit is. Of course, you have to sign your life away. You sign all sorts of disclosure statements, and also that you're declining any type of responsibility from them for if anything happens to you. It is something that is done very often in Africa. I've noticed anytime you go into a wild animal park, anytime that you go into a mining area, always there is something to be signed to not make anybody else responsible, but you're responsible for yourself. What we had to do is register. We had to have reservations, and we were able to be given a whole outfit, including boots, a helmet, a mining outfit to go down into the mine. And here on the right, upper right, you can see what we were given. The socks, and also, let me just make this smaller. And we are given helmets, of course. And what is very interesting is that on our suit, it says 763. That is the level of the depth that we went down into it. And each one of these outfits has the level of the mine level that you will be going down here. You see that all of these people are outfitted the same way. We were given the white suits to go down into, so we stood out a bit. The miners wear orange and blue suits, depending on which level they go on, and all of them had the number of the level on their outfits. That means that if anything happens and they have to bring somebody up, they know immediately which level that they were hurt on or which level that they came from. We were given a 25-pound oxygen pack. You can see that on everybody's belt. It lasts for 25 minutes in case there's a lack of oxygen. And let me tell you, it was a wonderful feeling after we went down there to take that pack off. It was like losing 25 pounds instantly. I wish it was that easy. But this is what you get down to, into these incredible tunnels. I was always curious to find out what the climate is like underneath. Some people say some caves, some mining areas are very hot and uncomfortable. Well, this was perfectly air conditioned, and the level of fresh air was amazing. It was a great temperature, and it just was really a surprise. The areas are tall, as you can see, hollowed out with good ventilation. Also, they go in all directions for miles and miles. This is the group waiting to go on an elevator. The elevator carries about a good 30 people. And we went down with the mining crew at shift change. And they also have down there safety rooms, which are rooms off of the big road-like structures. They have safety rooms which are equipped with more oxygen, with telephone connection to the upstairs, with extra air supplies, with emergency equipment, first aid equipment. And we were looking at the paperwork that goes with it and what's on the walls. Now this mine is run, at the time it was DeBeers. It has since changed hands to be run by a different company. But I was incredibly surprised how well equipped and how safety conscious the DeBeers mine was kept. As you can see, it is perfectly clean. It is definitely a mine that most of these miners really want to work in. Diamond mining, of course, is much cleaner than gold mining or metal mining, which of course can have all sorts of health issues involved. This is what it looked like down below, very dark. You had to wear these reflective strips. And if you can see something interesting that I have not seen in other places, is the guys holding a cigarette, which isn't too comforting, but I guess they're trying to make it as possible, as, you know, pleasant for some of these people who want to do that. On the right, you can see my boot stuck in the wet kimberlite. I almost lost my boot because it was so sticky. It was just very dark and sticky down there. And it can pull the boot right off of you if you're not careful. On the left, you see some of the diamonds that are brought up and then selected and sorted. The diamonds from on the ground are very beautiful crystal shapes, natural crystal shapes. They're not like alluvial diamonds, which have been ground down by water. These are mined in the kimberlite. Okay, let me go back. This is a map that easily shows, this is an older map. And this was a map that was made during the years when Namibia was a southwest colony of Germany. There are many, many different countries in Africa. Most people underestimate how many countries there are. But on the little square on the bottom, you can see that all of the blue area was German speaking. So when you go to this area, you see a lot of signage that is still German. And of course, Germans doing certain things, engineering quite well, spend a lot of time constructing railroad lines and communications and shipping into Namibia. So Namibia is a little bit advanced, I would say, over other countries because of the technology that went into there. Here's another map of Namibia. And let me go back one just to tell you, if you remember, this is where we were. Oranje Vrystaat is where the kimberlite is found and the diamonds are found from Cullinan. They are usually mined, like we saw, in open pit areas, but some of them find their way down the Orange River. And if you follow the Orange River all the way to the ocean, you can tell that, of course, some of the diamonds are washed all the way down into the ocean, which leads us in this case to an area right here. Can you see my arrow? I hope so. Right here, where the Orange River comes in and then goes into the water, the area right in here is the forbidden zone. And they call it the forbidden zone because nobody is allowed into it. It is larger than the country of Belgium. And it is a diamond zone, but mostly the diamonds come from down this river, all the way swept from the kimberlite in the Cullinan area. Here's another map of Namibia. It is quite an interesting country, consisting of very much desert land, but also greener area. We were lucky, we got to go to the north to an area that was called Etosha National Park, where there are lots of wildlife and animals to watch. It is up here in the north, in the northern border, and is basically a wildlife area that people can visit. The capital of Namibia is Windhoek. And then there is another beautiful town called Swakopmund along the ocean. Along that road from Windhoek to Swakopmund are many interesting places. Also, there are the Rongo Mountains, Spitzkop mountains that have a lot of different minerals and gemstones that can be found. Quartz is widespread, and but most of the country does consist of rather dry, arid areas. I'm going to take you right here in the south where it says Oranjemund. The gray area is South Africa. And when you are planning on entering the restricted diamond area, which is between Oranjemund and Luderitz, and this is where we're going to spend the next 45 minutes or so. The area was not really mined until the 1900s. Diamonds were found rather recently in that area, and the mining has come and gone. It kind of ebbed with the Big Depression and also with the World Wars, and so it has kind of seen better days and worse days. But in 1994, a company was created. It's called Namdeb, Namibia-deBeers, and they created this forbidden zone, which actually, after a lot of research through almost 50 years or even longer, they found that diamonds were worth mining in that area, even though the area is extremely difficult to live in and to exist. This coastline right here is called the Skeleton Coast. And the reason why it's not because of skeletons, but the skeletons of ships. What makes this coastline extremely inhospitable is that it has a current that comes from the South Pole, goes north along that coast, and is extremely cold. So the winds from the south are absolutely terrible. 130-mile-per-hour winds are not uncommon. And so the shipwrecks sometimes just clutter that coastline, and you can see several wrecks along there. Now, just a few years ago, I would say about 10 years ago, they found an old Spanish galleon ship that was partially buried, that was totally buried in the sand on the beach. And they, of course, it had archival importance. So archaeologists came and were digging that out, including many Spanish coins were found on that wreck. But this is what the landscape looks like. This is Spitzkop Mountain, where several gemstones are found. But this is how you get to see the local people. These are bush people, and any kind of area where they lived or graves of theirs are protected under the law. But they live very much like natives do, in huts, scattered around the landscape. It is amazing that they can survive the elements. But what they do is they set up these little tables. On the left-hand side is a little table along the dirt roads where hopefully somebody will travel that will stop and look at their treasures. One of the other towns this is called Tsumeb. And those of you who are mineral collectors will value this place because it is totally unique in the world. It's famous for having one of the largest buried mineral mining regions in the world. And they have little museums set up, and these are jacaranda trees. It's a beautiful little place, but it is heavily influenced by the mineral collectors and also the incredible finds. Every year in Tucson, you will see collections of minerals that have been found in Tsumeb. Another interesting spot that we discovered was the Hobe Meteorite. And of course, in the front, you will see that a lot of scientists have chiseled away pieces to study this piece. It's one of the largest known meteorites that is still intact. And it was found in a field by one of the farmers that was plowing, but they couldn't move it. It is far too heavy. So it's basically now a tourist site. They kind of excavated the area around it. And it is quite an interesting piece for mineralogists also. But the story started in around the turn of the century when the Germans built the railway in Namibia, and August Stauch was a hobby collector of minerals, and he always tried to look for stuff, and he was the one who stumbled upon the first diamond in the Forbidden Zone, which is called the Sperrgebiet in German. He was a railroad engineer, and he had a passion for prospecting. These are some of the old ruins that are left. This is now a ghost town, Kohlmannskuppe. You can tell it is written in the German writing, but you can also see that the sand dunes, which are the world's highest sand dunes that can travel up to 100, I think 100 feet in a year, but they are also like 33 feet and taller in that area. So yeah, the sand dunes basically take everything back after a few decades and the houses fall apart. And this area was populated in the 1920s and 30s with people who came there to mine. This is actually the spot where the first diamond, August Stauch's first diamond, was found on the top of that hill. And quickly, a diamond frenzy occurred. The Germans found out that there are diamonds to be found in Namibia. So what happens? It is a gold rush of its own kind to Namibia. What made it so interesting in Namibia is that the diamonds were on the surface, and people were going down there and finding diamonds in the moonlight at night. And so the story went worldwide that you could just pick up diamonds on the ground. Diamonds were so plentiful, they were literally picked off the ground, like I said, to 1911 to 1914. Many people actually went there to live. 5 million carats were found, 100 kilos of diamonds were found during those years in that area. They built schools to accommodate all the people who worked there. They brought in beautiful furnishings from their homeland, and it became quite a town, beautiful buildings. And some of them are, of course, still somewhat standing, but nature has taken over most of them at this time because there is no more real population at Kohlmannskuppe. It's mostly a ghost town now. And the relentless winds, of course, you can see that the wind actually takes away the mortar in between the bricks, and then the bricks fall down. And the buildings just basically are consumed by the weather. This is what Oranienburg, the town that was set up in the south, on the southern tip of Namibia, used to look like. And I think that was in the 1920s. It was basically sheds for the miners who came in from all over the world, mostly from Germany and Europe, and also local people who came in and really took up diamond mining. It was quite well organized, but this is what the town looks like today. It has about 5,000 people who live there, and it is a company town from beginning to end. The people who work there are basically, this whole town is just mining. It would not exist if there weren't diamonds in that area. The people who are brought in never have to pay for housing, lodging, energy, TV. Everything is provided for in that town by the company, which is at this time, Namibia-deBeers, Namdeb. What was very cute, we arrived and we were hosted by a couple who, she is American and her husband is one of the heads of the largest diamond producing mine in that area. And we were invited over for dinner that night. And as we walked in, she said to me, very coy and funny and laughingly, she said, "How do you like our Marxist little town?" Well, I understood her because I had known that this was, everything was provided for them, everything, nothing they had to do to live there. So it was indeed a bit of a Marxist place. But the people are quite satisfied and happy. There is no crime in this town. There are restaurants, there is a bowling alley, there is a golf course, there is a playing field. And so everything that you can imagine, they do. However, teenagers get shipped off and out of town. I guess that's why it is still crime-free. But it's very hard on the mothers because they are not raising their children only up to a certain age. And then they go to boarding school, either to Johannesburg, Cape Town, or Windhoek, the main city in Namibia. But Johannesburg seems to be the favorite place to get people sent off to. And even the women who are stuck in these places get to go to Johannesburg quite frequently by airplane to get, or Cape Town, to get away from this kind of very redundant life. Oranjemund is the company town. It is set up very clean, very nice. We were able to stay in the guest quarters, which is just a normal kind of building with several rooms, but very lovely done. Nothing fancy though. This is the Baris Mine. It is along the Orange River. It is the #1 producing mine in that area. It has an average of all the stones that are found there, the average weight is 1 carat. Also, what is unique about that mine is that it is extremely, that they are extremely clean diamonds. 99% are gem quality. Let me just take a look at my notes. Okay. And this is the riverbed of the Orange River. And what they do, this is actually here, you have a picture of the man who actually invited us to come and see the mine, who invited his student. He was a student of the man who invited us in Tucson. So that was the connection. He's the head of the Baris Mine, which is what I just said, one of the #1 mines. To enter the forbidden zone, you have to get permission first from the company, from Namdeb. Then you have to get permission from the government of Namibia, and you have to undergo a security clearance. And so here you had to have a security clearance. You had to send them that paperwork before you could travel to enter. Once you got to Oranjemund, you of course were going over the border from South Africa into Namibia and also into the forbidden zone. Here are the rules. The rules are posted everywhere you go. And what is fantastic in a way is that once you're in that town, you basically belong to those people. Everyone had a little chip card, and this chip card would provide all the data about yourself to the person who will show you around. And to be able to enter, you have to go through screening. And you're going to spend 5 days in the forbidden zone, so your luggage gets checked, and you also can see areas where there are no cell phones allowed. And you have to basically tape your camera shut so that you cannot take your flash card out or whatever and put a diamond into it. The Another interesting fact is that you have these 3 doors, 1, 2, and 3 on the left lower corner, and you have to go through them. And of course, there are x-rays involved. And I said, if every employee and everybody who comes and goes has to go through these doors, won't they get a rather large dose of x-rays if if they have to do that daily? And the lady who stood on the side, she says, yeah, but nobody knows which machine and which door we turn on that day. So yeah, that was a way to for people to never know if they are indeed getting x-rayed or not, but it is one way to keep theft down. If anybody was discovered with a rough diamond on them, they're immediately fired and let go, and not to ever come back or get a job in the industry again. This is the gentleman who kept our little chip cards in that box. And he says, well, you can't leave without them. You cannot go anywhere without me. And he was kind of getting a thrill out of having our little group in his hands. And that is our entrance to the guest houses on the right, with all the information, when we're going to depart, or how long we're staying, or where we're staying, or anything, every step we took. They have little restaurants. As you can see, the Oranjemund Adult Library is not exactly what it means in the United States. It is a library for just grown-ups. Here we have a town swimming pool, and also here is a ball field. But what we couldn't quite figure out is, if it is a Sperrgebiet and the town is completely closed off to other people, how did the antelope get there? And they were in there having a nice leisurely time in the ballpark, in the ball field. Here, the Orange River mines, they were opened not too long ago. They are still producing. And what is interesting about Oranjemund is that just a few years ago, I think it was 2017, they did open up the town for visitors. You still have to have paperwork to go in, but the town is now open to tourism, and they're hoping to make it more interesting. But there's really not that much to do there other than to look at the mining operations, but you cannot really go into any. We were lucky to be able to actually observe everything. They do have a sheet, like a board in front of every facility that says how many accidents, how many injuries. And we noticed that also in Cullinan. DeBeers was very, very up in front about safety and what can be improved on. And they were very proud of the fact that they went for 308 days without any major injuries. So I just thought that was interesting. What the people do at the Orange River mines is that they actually trace the old riverbeds of the Orange River. As we know, rivers do change their course according to the terrain or the weather, and they shift pathways. So the best geologists from around the world get jobs down there, and they are told to please find where the ancient riverbeds were, because that might be where the diamonds are deposited. On the upper right, you see a picture of a huge waterfall in a national park, and it is along the Orange River where we traveled. Agabe Falls, and it is quite a sight. What I just always was curious about is how many diamonds are at the bottom of that falls, because if they were transported from Kimberley to the Orange River outlets, how many diamonds are really down there? What they do is they find the old riverbeds, and then they run sampling pits. And the sampling pits are areas where they measure a certain area and find and excavate and find how many diamonds are in a specific area. And then they record the sizes of them, the weights of them, the clarity of them, and see which pit is the most beneficial to work. Some of the pits get covered back up, and some of the pits are being going to be mined. But here you can see the area and what it looks like and how they're trying to find where the old riverbeds once were. Geologically, the people really know which layers stuff is in. There are agates, jaspers, and other stones that can indicate which layer the diamonds are found. And there's a small layer that is more gritty and gravelly that they try to prefer digging into. Now, the base rock in these places is mostly dolomite. It is not always very hard, and it can collapse if they bring in heavy equipment to move rocks. Here you can kind of see the geology. The sand is kind of plateaued. Some of the rock shapes are from the ocean, they go away in plateaus. And then there are the sand dunes, and of course, there are what is called the pocket beach mines. This is a quick picture of what they are looking for. This is like an old riverbed that they're excavating out. Here you can see the gray dolomite, you can see the water coming in, and you can actually see where the rocks are. And what they're doing is they're bringing in like large equipment that is like super duper vacuum cleaners, and they actually sink them down into these crevices and suck out what is in these lowest parts. And oftentimes that is where they find the diamonds. Here's an even better picture of the dolomite. And you can, in the background, you can see the layers of gravel. And so they know from on top with the sampling pits where possibly diamonds could be. They go down into these areas, excavate them, and then they find the diamonds if they are lucky enough. Here you can see the heavy equipment, and it is quite dangerous because some of these larger dolomite areas, they can collapse and take the heavy equipment with them down into it. What was one of the coolest things? We got to ride on a helicopter across the Pocket Beach mines. Here's a shot that I took from the helicopter. You can actually see the shadow of the helicopter down below. You can see how it is set up. The South Atlantic Ocean there is on your bottom where the waves are coming in. Then there is a dike-like area. And then the beach area is hollowed out in large rectangular areas all the way to the bottom. Now, what is happening is that they have to pump the water out. So what you see on the bottom is the water is being pumped out from the Pocket Beach mine that's on your left, and where you can see the bedrock already. So they pump the water out, then they go into the crevices and see if there are any diamonds there. They do this quite strategically. They go up and down the beach. There are 18 pocket beach areas. And in the background, you will see some of the sampling areas that they are sampling, just the dirt to see if they can find diamonds. On that dike, which can shift in the winds and with weather, they set up equipment that will keep the dike in one piece, because if anything shifts, they immediately need to bring out the large equipment that is in these pocket beach area mines, because the water from the ocean will wash in and wash it out. So they have these solar-driven measuring devices that measure any ground movement set up quite frequently along that area. But here you can kind of see the plateaus, how they kind of go away, and the gravel, which is incredibly interesting because everything is round. There, you don't see any sharp rocks. This is Dr. LaBerge, Professor LaBerge from the university, who made this all come true, and wonderfully nice man and geologist. But here you can see to the right on the picture is the ocean. We're standing on this dike burr area, and to the other side are the pocket beach mines. Of course, if the water from the river washes the diamonds down to the pocket beach mines and to the beach, there is a large area. It's a 50-kilometer wide area that is actually permitted to be dredged for diamonds. And DeBeers has a fleet of several ships, and maybe some of you will remember Jacques Cousteau, and it was a ship similar to this that he was on, but these ships are well equipped for actually sucking the sand on the bottom of the ocean by siphoning it up and then cleaning it and making sure that they get diamonds that are on the ocean bottom. Now, these are drill ships built in 1978, converted in 1994 to be used for diamonds. We were extremely fortunate to be able to go onto one of the ships. When we arrived at the ship, we took these helicopters. These helicopters, for example, fly 3, 4, 5 times a day back and forth between the ships and the land. So they're extremely skilled helicopter pilots. They hire the best, like I said before. And what is really phenomenal is that they fly in these extreme conditions of wind and ocean. You can tell on the picture on the bottom that I wasn't too certain if I really wanted to do this, but I thought this was a great opportunity. They make you put on these rubber vests. However, if you go down in one of these helicopters, there is absolutely no way to survive because these are shark-infested, ice-cold waters, and that is not a place where you want to go to the beach and enjoy the water. We loaded up and went, and it was my first helicopter ride ever, and it was spectacular because this is what you go to. You see the ship, and the little landing area is right here. Well, that day there were 16-foot waves, and we weren't sure if we were going to be able to land on the ship, but no problem. We landed. We had people with complete fire gear come and get us out of the helicopter. But what is really fascinating is when you are in a weather condition like this and the ship goes up and down with the waves, the helicopter has to touch down and immediately turn the blades on the helicopter in the reverse, because that way it will stay on the landing area. Otherwise, it would lift right back off, and it would be a real disaster when the ship moves. Here we go. Here is about 5 hours later when the helicopter comes to pick us back up. He does not stay on the ship, and we were let off to be on this ship for several hours, get to visit with anybody we wanted to on the ship. However, we were not allowed to go on one side of the boat because that was the windy side. And so they didn't want to lose us over the railing, so they only allowed us to stay on one side of it. And what is really fascinating is that I am right here, that little tiny spot with a yellow helmet on. And Dennis was brave enough to go walk that gangway all the way to the other side to get this picture. So at least this was the more quiet side. of the ship. But as you can see, the horizon is not straight. And I was smart enough to take an anti-nauseant before I went on it. Everybody else was turning green as we were on that boat for a while. Now, this is the observation deck on the ship where they can, the central control room, where they can see whatever goes on below the water. And this is was open to us to look at. And the next thing, it's not on it. What was really fun was we got to meet the captain, who, when we on, he said, "Who do you know? We never had visitors on this ship before. Who let you do this?" And so we felt very, very privileged. And he was kind of in awe of our group coming on board and spending some hours with him. I guess this is not something that happens every day. And it was absolutely a fascinating experience. Here is on our way back, we have the helicopter again over the pocket beach mines. You can see some of them are bigger than others, and some of them have been drained, and some of them are being refilled with sand. And what is also something that not a lot of people know is that there are environmental studies going on all the time, protecting the environment, the species of animals and plants that are built around, that live around there. And yes, there are animals, and there is one specific plant that is endangered that only lives in Namibia, and so only thrives in Namibia, so they have to be careful. But these are the type of areas, anytime that they find a shipwreck, or they find fossils, which are quite interesting, and there are many fossils there that they find. There are like 10 different species of fossilized animals that they have found in that region. The work, the diamond dredging and the diamond work is stopped immediately, and that area is announced, and people from Johannesburg, from Cape Town, from Windhoek come in. Scientists come in to study the findings. Also, they restore the landscape after they do any kind of upsetting the landscape. We even saw people raking by hand areas that were the sampling pits back to the way they were before they started to be worked. This is the little airport in Oranjemund. You can tell they love their diamonds, even on the window. And we flew in and out of that place. These are the diamond grading facilities. The diamond grading is another area where you have to go through top security to be able to enter. We were able to observe what they do, and they have the best equipment. They check luminescence, they check for all sorts of things, for fluorescence, they check for the weights that come out of the sampling pits. And people literally never touch the diamonds, because the diamonds go in the sorting areas, go into these what they look like milk cans, and no human hands ever touch them until they are shipped out. But they go into here, they go into this, and she sorts them by hand through the gloves. So this is what she is looking for. This is from one sampling pit. There were 22 diamonds found on May 7th of 2007, and they were a total of 36 carats. So pretty good sizes, a few small ones, but this is what they look like. What is great about alluvial diamonds is that they are extremely clean, like I've said before, extremely gemmy. Here's another pit. Here were 54 diamonds that only totaled 8 carats, so a set of smaller stones. You can see that most of them are pretty white in color. Some of them are a little bit off-white. Then once we were done with the Pocket Beach mines, we traveled on north along the coast. This road is closed to anybody who is not working there. So we felt very privileged of working there, being able to travel there. No private vehicles, and on a moment's notice, the road can be blown over by sand, or the car can get stuck. So it is not something you want to be on for a long time. And this is a pretty long ride without any service stations or facilities. But they do warn you about the speed can kill. So they are acutely aware of what people are up to. Here's a dune that is starting to come across the road. This is the road. And what was curious, and this is one of the rare plants. Also, what is curious is that the land looks like nothing could live there. However, there are flamingos, and there are herds of flamingos closer to the water areas, but we did see one white flamingo, and we also saw hyena tracks. So there are animals. It was a deceptive landscape if you think that nothing lives there. Yes, things do. This is one of the, I think, one of the world's wonders. This is called Bougainville's Arch. It is wind hollowed out, this incredible structure. It is a place where no tourist ever gets to go. We were very fortunate. They let us out of the van, and we were able to kind of hike up there a little bit onto the hill, but we did not want to get blown into the water. It was extremely windy and stormy, but it is a sight to behold, and we felt extremely privileged to be able to see this arch. Which brings us to the north of the Forbidden Zone, to the only area in the world where there are wind-blown diamond deposits. These are ancient diamond deposits going back millions of years. The sand and gravel are finer than in the south, and so a lot of dirt has to be moved to be able to find diamonds. The Elizabeth Bay Mine is the only place on earth, like I've said, to find these small diamonds. It is extremely productive. At first they thought that it wouldn't really be worthwhile to mine there. However, there are, in 100 tons of dirt, there are 100 carats to be found. And these are stones that are 0.2, 0.3 carats. So it really is quite a production to be able to make this worthwhile, because they're tiny stones. They're usually stones that are melee, that are usually sent off to India to be cut into melee stones. But this is the area where they are found. And this is the gravel that they're looking in. These are not found in the water. These are found in the dunes. And you can tell this is like the footprint coming off the moon, going into the moon. So I wonder if the moon has that same type of gravel, and I wonder if they're diamonds, because that footprint really does look like astronaut Armstrong's footprint on the moon. But these are the gravels you look through, mostly quartz. It's very pretty, and I even asked if I could have some gravel, and they said absolutely no, because they are extremely strict about you wearing their outfits. They give you an outfit that has boots. They take everything that they give you to wear back again when you're done to leave. Here are the tons of dirt that get moved in that area to be able to find those tiny stones. And this is the Elizabeth Bay Mine sorting and place. And this is the helicopter that they all love dearly, because this is the helicopter that comes once a week and gathers up all of the diamonds that they have sorted out and found in the specific mines. And this is the one that just is going to take off from the Elizabeth Bay Mine to bring the diamonds down to Lüderitz or other towns to be sorted. Lüderitz is the town that we went to on the northern end. It is a shipping port. It is no longer in the Forbidden Zone, but it is the headquarters of Namdeb. Namibia-deBeers offices. They put us up in a lovely house, and we could have this wonderful view from the window. It is a lovely town, however, very isolated, and it has about, I think, 12,000 people who live there currently. This is what it looks like, not exactly Hollywood or New York City, but very cleanly kept, but everything is pretty much dirt roads. They don't pave much. We stayed there for a night or two. I don't remember exactly. This was the lovely Gurke house. This was built by a German businessman who wanted to entice his wife to come and live with him in Luderitz. And he equipped the house with the best of the best, including these wonderful stained windows, wood from Germany, imported. And I was lucky enough to be able to stay there. What was really fun about this place was that I had access to every place in the building, which is actually a museum. So I did spend the night at the museum and was able to look into the desks and find these old receipts. These were receipts from early in the 1900s, and these are were describing what the imports were that they were bringing in by ship to Namibia and how much the costs were. Fabric, building materials, and building materials for the building, and also personal belongings. So it was quite, for somebody who loves history, it was quite something. The Namdeb offices are there, and also at the time, Nicky Oppenheimer was the head of DeBeers, and here's a photograph of him, and here's a photograph of with the fellow who drove us all the way through the Forbidden Zone, and a really, really nice gentleman. But as you all know, probably the Oppenheimer family no longer is actively involved in DeBeers. I think he stepped down and his son didn't want to take over. And so things have changed. However, the mining is going on as long as there is still diamonds to be found and mined. It has slowed down. There are less people now in Oranjemund, but since they've opened it up to the public, they're hoping to make it into an interesting site. But there is not, like I said, not much to do if you're not into mining and diamonds. This was the view out of our plane. We flew back from Luderitz to Oranjemund, and to take a plane then on to Johannesburg, Cape Town. And we were able to look out the window onto this incredible scene with all the sand and all the wind and all the incredible diamonds on the ground. As we touched down, there was the little red helicopter in Oranjemund getting loaded up on a little movable thing. I guess he unloaded the diamonds onto the bigger plane, and possibly the plane that we flew back to one of the bigger cities. So I would have guessed that that would be the route. And it was kind of fun to see the red helicopter, because apparently from what the story that was told to me was that everybody cheers whenever they see the red helicopter coming by in the mining areas. And so that is my talk for today. And I hope you all enjoyed it very much like I did. And it's a once in a lifetime opportunity that I'm really glad I got to share with you.
Thank you so much, Denise. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Good.
That's fabulous. Thank you, Denise.